This is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous, good-looking friends. As the world is so focused on Meghan's stupid Instagram account, talking about every stupid photo that she puts up here, like recently, Meghan Markle channels 90s Will Smith vibes in summertime Instagram posts, Prince Harry is still on his mission. So while everyone is distracted by this stupid clown that we know as Meghan Markle, Prince Harry is still on his mission in America to undermine the U.S. Constitution and erode Americans' first and fourth constitutional rights. Here we have Prince Harry speaking at this Nexus summit sponsored by all the globalists who are trying to indoctrinate the youth. Organizations such as the Sustainable Media Center, of which Harry and Meghan are fully behind and funding, talk about how they are empowering the youth to come up with solutions to save the future. And here you have Prince Harry, this snake oil salesman, going on about empowering the youth, but really it's about going on and brainwashing the youth and making them think that the solutions that they're coming up with, being guided by the very same globalists who have been trying to destroy the West, is actually making some kind of difference. But the reality is, all it's doing is enslaving them further. And while everyone is focused on the stupidity of Meghan Markle and her bootlegged wine and her as ever whatever and her Instagram bullshit, this guy is here to continue on this mission of censorship. And these organizations that Harry and Meghan are funding and supporting back socialism. You know, I made a post about this yesterday on X, and I did post in my community page for you guys to check it out, showing you that the organizations that back and support this sustainable media so-called nonprofit are nonprofit organizations that are backed and funded not only by dark money, but also by evil globalists like Soros, for the most part. A lot of these organizations are backed and funded by Soros, but also the U.S. taxpayer, without us even knowing it. What people are failing to realize is that this is not a conspiracy. These organizations have been driving change in the direction of socialism. This particular nonprofit, the Sustainable Media Center, is responsible for the marketing and visibility of this recent primary win for Democratic Socialist Islamists, Zohran Mamdani. This outcome that we see in New York right now proves what I've been telling you all along about these people and what Harry and Meghan are doing by preying and grooming the youth into this ideology. And this is just a perfect example of showing the outcome of what this indoctrination is doing. The majority of votes that helped Mamdani become the Democrat candidate for the mayor election were the youth, the same youth that Harry and Meghan have been indoctrinating. That's why I keep saying, keep your children away from these people who keep saying that they want to guide them and empower them. No, they want to groom them and indoctrinate them. And this is why you see Archwell Fugazi Public Charities' mission start pivoting towards the focus on mental health. It's all about this control. They don't give a shit about the mental health of these kids. Ultimately, they want to be able to control the algorithms. And since the first go-around didn't work because they got exposed, they have now pivoted towards saying, oh, the harms that's being caused with the online bullying, and you know the drill. But
one of the pieces to why the digital world was so important to us is because my wife in 2018 was the most trolled person in the world. So there was a lived experience in that, but at no point did we suddenly think, okay, well, let's go and let's take this industry on.
On GMA with Prince Harry's personal news message calling for change and compassion when it comes to toxic social media. Lama Hassan is back with more again from London. And Lama, Harry and Meghan, they're really on a mission on this one.
Yeah, good morning to you, Cecilia. They really are. Prince Harry has some very strong words this morning for social media companies and those that advertise on them, calling for change and calling for it now.
But at no point did we suddenly think, okay, well, let's go and let's take this industry on.
This morning, Prince Harry is calling for the social media world to reform. Writing in the tech magazine Fast Company, he says, "We have an opportunity to do better and remake the digital world." This remodeling must include industry leaders from all areas drawing a line in the sand against unacceptable online practices. He explains that he and Meghan have been calling these leaders, asking them to reconsider their roles in funding platforms that he says, quote, have contributed to, stoked and created the conditions for a crisis of hate, a crisis of health and a crisis of truth. The prince argues online advertisers must take more responsibilities and demand the platforms they advertise on stamp out misinformation and hate speech to create a more tolerant, less divisive environment. As a father, he is particularly worried about the effects a toxic social media world can have on children. He says the world is at a turning point and a rebuilding of compassionate, trustworthy communities needs to be at the heart of where we go, including the digital community. And he warns that from the many experts he and Meghan have spoken to, one thing is clear: the time to act is now. We do not have the luxury of time. ABC News understands that this is an area the couple have been working on for some time. Having visited Stanford University earlier this year, they learned more from the humane tech leaders there about the need for change.
Now, if you've been following me for a while, then you would understand why there was so much censorship that was going on. This was all about preventing the rise in populism and ensuring that Donald Trump did not get elected for a second term. And they succeeded. Not only did they suppress the Hunter Biden laptop story, but they also had people deplatformed, demonetized. Christopher Bouzy knows all about that. Prince Harry was very much a part of this globalist scheme. I still stand firm that Megxit was 1,000% a lie and that Harry and Meghan came over here to help the Biden regime get into office while Harry tried to undermine our constitutional rights. This is the so-called mission in redesigning the media landscape, aka reforming it to put these so-called regulations and guardrails over your free speech and your freedom of thought. And I stand by saying that Charles knew. Now, to what degree did he know about? That's a different story. But Charles knew that his son was coming over here to reshape the media landscape. And quoted by Prince Harry on several occasions was that Charles responded and said that it was a suicide mission. I mean, how many times do I have to play everybody this soundbite of Harry saying this? I'm not attacking the king. I'm just telling you the facts. King Charles has been a big supporter of this Agenda 2030, as well as the United Nations and the World Health Organization. All three organizations have been pushing for globalization. So you can bet that he was not a big fan of Donald Trump. He doesn't have to say it. You know, you hear guilt by association. I think we all need to stop holding out hope that King Charles is going to do something about the titles and these two invisible children in the line of succession. All these articles that are coming out about William, when he becomes king, he's going to strip the titles. I don't even believe that's going to happen. Because I truly do believe that Harry and Meghan are doing exactly what they're being told to do here. And now, for the next 4 years, we're going to continue to see this nonsense from Meghan Markle while Harry goes off and handles the so-called important stuff for the mission. The king is not going to do anything. We really do have to rely on the United States authorities. And that's why it's so important that we keep talking about it. Not talk about the bullshit that Meghan is wanting us to talk about. We have to keep talking about what Harry is doing here in the United States, because that is what needs to be spotlighted. That is what needs to be called out, and that is what needs to be brought to the mainstream media. Now, I did say a couple of videos back, and I forget which one it was, but this is not over for Harry and Meghan. They're still a part of this censorship scheme in order to take down the First Amendment, to control the information online. And it just so happened that yesterday, Michael Schellenberger did a piece and confirmed exactly what I've been telling you is happening.
Everyone, it's Mike Schellenberger for Public. Over the last few months, we have documented the global backlash to the censorship industrial complex, culminating in a series of major political and institutional defeats for its architects. In the United States, Donald Trump's election marked a decisive repudiation of state-sponsored censorship, followed swiftly by executive orders cutting off federal funding for so-called misinformation initiatives, including National Science Foundation grants. Trump also cut funding for USAID, a key funder of international censorship networks, and threatened to restrict travel to the US by foreign nationals involved in speech suppression efforts abroad. Overseas last year, Australia rejected sweeping online censorship laws, while Ireland's government shelved its hate speech legislation after fierce public opposition. But now the censorship industrial complex is regrouping around the world, plotting a return to power. Just yesterday, Brazil's Supreme Court moved to expand its authority over online speech by forcing platforms to preemptively censor content it labels hate speech or anti-democratic, which are terms so vague that it could be used to punish even mild criticism of government officials. The court also ruled that the platforms will be held jointly liable for posts retroactively deemed illegal, pressuring them to act as private censors and remove content by default. Left-wing activist groups can exploit this system by flooding platforms with takedown demands, creating a para-state censorship regime. Also yesterday, and the day before, the former CIA director under Barack Obama, John Brennan, joined a closed-door meeting of the Law Society of Ireland's Centre for Justice and Law Reform, alongside other figures with deep ties to law enforcement and intelligence networks. The gathering made clear that Western security elites are actively coordinating efforts to rebrand and revive the censorship agenda under the banner of legal reform, even as public backlash has slowed their progress elsewhere. Now, to be sure, the momentum is still behind the free speech movement, as recent victories show a growing public and political revolt against censorship. Last week, we met with free speech advocates from around the world to build our movement, which is stronger than ever, and are very hopeful that the Trump administration will take actions to address the growing crisis in Brazil and Europe. And in the United Kingdom, where the Labour Party has advanced new restrictions on speech under the banner of tolerance, support for Keir Starmer is slipping as voters grow wary of overreach. But the new threats are real and serious. In Germany last week, authorities carried out 170 nationwide raids and arrests targeting citizens accused of spreading hate speech and misinformation online, which are part of an increasingly escalated campaign under laws that blur the line between public safety and political censorship. Meanwhile, the European Union's Digital Services Act has begun to take effect. It grants sweeping powers to unelected regulators to demand content takedowns, reorder algorithms, and impose platform-wide penalties across the European continent. These efforts are increasingly backfiring as public resistance grows and political support erodes. In 2023, 70% of Democrats supported government efforts to combat misinformation. This year, that number has fallen to 58%. The decline is even sharper among independents and conservatives, many of whom now view censorship not as a safeguard, but as a political weapon. Now, there is evidence that the censors knew that they were crossing ethical and legal lines, and thus opened up their efforts to backlash, and yet proceeded anyway. A Facebook executive during the Biden administration warned her supervisors that censorship of public concerns over taking the COVID vaccine could actually increase vaccine hesitancy. They went forward anyway. Bill Gates, in his 2024 Netflix series, noted that aggressively pushing back against vaccine misinformation can erode trust. He advocated for censorship of disfavored vaccine information in the same series anyway. A former CIA employee named Renee DiResta recorded a video for the Department of Homeland Security laying out its censorship by proxy scheme while acknowledging First Amendment concerns. In 2022, another architect of censorship, Kate Starbird, and former CIA counsel Suzanne Spalding exchanged emails expressing concerns about public scrutiny of their efforts to suppress online speech. "It's only a matter of time before someone starts asking about our work," Spalding wrote. "Yes, I agree," responded Starbird. "We have a couple of pretty obvious vulnerabilities." Even so, censorship advocates pressed on. In other words, rather than retreat, the architects of the censorship industrial complex have expanded their efforts across allied democracies, using legislation, courts, and transnational coordination to impose new restrictions on speech.
But now we've created a fantastic platform through the Parents Network for parents all over the US and Canada and the UK as well, to be able to share their stories and share their lived experiences in the hope that less parents are affected by social media.
So now you see what's going on. They're recalibrating, using mental health as the driver to say, oh, no, we're not trying to censor speech. We're just saying it's bad for your health and we need to do something about it. And here are all the testimonies of all these parents who lost children due to social media harm. But that's the narrative that the Archwell Fugazi Public Charity is peddling today, betting on the fact that the majority of the public is not going to go to the website and look at the individual stories that have been put up, recognizing that quite a few of them have nothing to do with social media. But details, right? Those pesky little things will get you every single time. And how convenient. Christopher Boozy has come back just as some of the creators on YouTube have been having a bit of trouble with harassment and bullying themselves. Coincidence? I don't know. What do you think?
Nevertheless, the counterfeit kids talk was on the wane until Meghan's hilariously sycophantic supporter, Christopher Boozy, stuck his oar in, poked the hornet's nest and set the gossip mill buzzing again. Thanks, Chris. In a column for Newsweek magazine, tech entrepreneur Boozy wrote, when Meghan Markle posted a light-hearted video of herself dancing in a hospital room while 9 months pregnant, she probably thought she was sharing a relatable moment that other mothers would appreciate. Instead, within hours, online trolls and conspiracy theorists weaponized it as proof she was never pregnant at all. This nightmare is what Meghan's life has become. Every joyful moment gets twisted into ammunition by people who have made destroying her their full-time job. And we need to talk about what this sustained cruelty has done to a woman whose only crime was falling in love with a prince. Well, we might need to talk about it if the woman in question wasn't such a dedicated self-publicist.
Exactly, but what people are failing to recognize, or at least understand, is that everything that we see being put out about this couple is calculated and strategic. Boozy writing this article for Newsweek was no accident. It was intentional, based off of this agenda that Harry and Meghan have to go after the YouTubers. Look, we all saw the beginning of where Harry and Meghan were going to put their focus when Meghan spoke last year at South by Southwest, and specifically calling out people who put out videos on these streaming platforms. And since then, you can tell that there has been a concentrated effort to go after and target us individually. The way that they're doing it is very different to the first time around because they were exposed for being a part of this complex. Now, at the same time, when Elon Musk had bought over Twitter and named it X, we saw propaganda being pushed out of Harry and Meghan separating from Sunshine Sachs, their PR company. Now, we know Sunshine Sachs is heavily tied with the Democratic Party and may have some involvement with orchestrating a lot of these online accounts and people with Ian Sexton and Boozy and other nefarious individuals like Sarah Data, all to defend the Duchess. Now, if you haven't noticed, during that time, a lot of those hateful accounts all of a sudden just started to jump ship. Now, since then, I think many of you can agree and recognize that there has been a reduction of the Sussex Squad coming in, threatening, doxing, harassing, saying hurtful and nasty things because they have gotten such a bad rap that it was actually affecting Meghan Markle's reputation. Now, what I believe is going on is that those same sugars that had disappeared actually are still around, but they have flipped, now posing as Megxiteers. It's very clear that there are people that have infiltrated in this space, and various people have been specifically targeted, all because they know that they are vulnerable psychologically and can be affected. And the ultimate goal is really to push people over the edge so they can make the point in saying that, yeah, we do need to put guardrails because you see what happened here? And that's the point that they want to get you to. They want you to say, you know what, you're right. Maybe we do need this because look at how much harm is being caused to others. And it's all because of a select few who have openly admitted that they are getting paid to do it, and those that can't control their egos and always need to have the last word. And what people don't fully understand or don't really think about when it comes to psychological warfare is that there are people studying us. They're studying me, my channel, things I say, as well as others, in trying to figure out where is there vulnerability for us to go in and attack. And when they find the vulnerability, like someone who has a mental illness or someone who is narcissistic, they'll exploit that in various ways, whether it be a creator who is being paid to push out lies, subscribers or pretend subscribers who are in the comment section dropping rumors and saying nasty things, ensuring that the person that they are trying to psychologically get to sees it. And then they start to exploit it any which way that they can in order to drive you to a point where either you self-regulate yourself and come off the platform, so you're censored, or they push you to something even more harmful. And that's the goal of what Harry and Meghan have been doing. Whoever is behind Harry and Meghan in the whole saga, they have been the ones to create this bullying situation. You notice this is the main theme of this whole entire social media situation with Harry and Meghan. It's always about bullying. So all the problems that we have had, recognize that there are planted people who are paid to harass, to intimidate, to threaten on a daily basis, relentlessly. And this is all to create the optics that we need to do something in reforming the online space. But what we really should be doing is setting up laws that prevent people from hiring, essentially, cyberbullies to go after and harass and dox people. You know, if you're paying someone to target someone, to harass them and intimidate them, that's legit terrorism. And I think those laws need to be enforced and go after Harry and Meghan for, and all the people that are behind doing this, because it's not right. Like, we should not lose our rights over the perception that this is a growing problem when the actual problem is being caused by the very same people who are pushing for this regulation. Now, the other side of it, now don't get me wrong, there are people who are just mean and just miserable, and they enjoy being nasty to others. You know, that is where you have to make the decision on whether you choose to stay in company of those people or not. Because part of this so-called mental effect that social media is having on people is self-inflicted. And we know that there are certain people like Meghan Markle who scour social media every day to see what people are saying. And that's the part that people have no self-discipline around. Like, she can't not look at social media to see all the comments about her. She just can't. And, you know, when you are purposely doing that of your own free will, of course it's going to affect your mental health. But who's to blame for that? It shouldn't be social media. It should be you, because you are a free will to not look at it, but you choose to do it. Just because you don't have the ability to control yourself doesn't mean the rest of us need to suffer for it. Have you ever noticed Harry and Meghan never put themselves in a position to ever be challenged for the lies and virtue signaling and hypocrisy that they do? Never. And that's because they are controlling the narrative. They are controlling what information you get about them. I don't want to live in a world like that, because these two, as we clearly have seen, are the most manipulative, malicious human beings you can set your eyes on.
It's quite easy to be able to abandon your values because some people are proving that it's easier to get to the top by, lying. I'm sure the fall from that is quite monumental. But my wife said to me very early on in our relationship, if you live your life by truth, it's the most efficient way to live.
You see, Harry and Meghan want to live in a world where nothing they say gets challenged. They don't want to be criticized. And even though Harry is virtue signaling and talking about those that criticize, that want to silence him, we know that that's the exact opposite. This guy has every platform available to him, and he continues to keep spewing lies. What he doesn't like are the people who are criticizing him for those lies and the hypocrisy. Harry, you're a bold-faced liar.
So yes, we will continue to live our life by truth, and we will continue to stand up for what we believe in, the difference between right and wrong. And almost like, especially when it comes to mental health, I find it fascinating that when you are in a position similar to mine, if you do speak up, that the people in those positions of power, in the media, whatever, that criticize you, thinking that they're going to silence you, clearly don't realize that the importance of the fact that if they do try to criticize you and silence you, there is a need and a desire to continue to speak more.
So you heard what he said. Those that are in a similar position to his. Well, I don't know how many people are in a similar position of being royalty, but I can tell you this much. He's not talking about us. In fact, he's ignoring our voices in the criticism that we have. He's talking more about the right-wing media that have been calling him out. No, Harry, you have a lot of voices who can't stand you, who can't stand your wife, and we're going to continue to keep on getting louder and louder. And I pray to God that the U.S. government comes after you with full force, man, because what you have done was so wrong to America that you need to be deported immediately and banned from this country forever. You know, this is why we have to keep our eye on this fool, because they're up to no good. And all this nonsense that Meghan Markle is doing with the as ever whatever is all just smoke and mirrors. What we need to pay attention to is exactly this. But definitely let me know your thoughts below. As always, I will be back with more content. But until then, please be safe, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Such a fraud.